So the third one was the cellular barrier. Now, cytokinin barrier. So cytokinin barrier, these are virus infected cells secrete proteins called interferons. Virus infected cells, the viral infected cells, they secrete proteins called interferons, which protect non-infected cells from further viral infections. Okay, now the acquired immunity. So acquired immunity on the other hand is pathogen specific. So these are the pathogen specific, right? Acquired immunity on the other hand is a pathogen specific, and innate immunity, it was a non-pathogen, non-specific, right? It is characterized by memory. Now this is characterized by memory. This means when our body encounters a pathogen for the first time, it produces a response called primary response, which is of low intensity. So subsequent encounter with the same pathogen elicits a highly intensified secondary or anamnestic response. This is ascribed to the fact that our body appears to have memory to the first encounter. So in the second encounter, it is highly intensified than the first one, because we at the second time we have the memory of the first one, we know that pathogen. So the primary and the secondary immune responses are carried out with the help of, so both these primary and secondary response, which is anamnestic response, so both these responses are carried out with the help of two special types of lymphocytes present in our blood, that is B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte. The B lymphocyte produce an army of proteins in response to pathogen into our blood to fight with them. So B lymphocyte produce an army of proteins. B lymphocytes produce an army of proteins in response to pathogens into our blood to fight with them. These proteins are called antibodies. The T cells themselves do not secrete antibodies but help B cells to produce them. So T cells themselves do not secrete antibodies but help B cells to produce them. Now each antibody molecule has 4 peptide chains, 2 small called light chains and 2 longer, that is heavy chains. Okay, hence an antibody is represented by H2L2. The different types of antibodies are produced in our body. IgA, IgM, IgE and IgG are some of them. AMEG, right? A cartoon of an antibody is given in figure. Because of these antibodies are found in blood, the response is all because these antibodies are found in the blood, the response is called the humoral immune response. This is one of the two types of our acquired immune response, that is antibody mediated. The second type is called the cell mediated response, that is cell mediated immunity, CMI. The T lymphocytes mediate CMI, that is T lymphocytes involved into the CMI, cell mediated immunity. Very often when some human organs like heart, eye, liver, kidney fail to function satisfactorily, transplantation is the only remedy to enable the patient to live a normal life. Okay, so the transplantation is important. Then a search begin to find a suitable donor. Why is it that the organs cannot be taken from just anybody? What is it that the doctors take grafts from just any source, an animal, another primate or any human beings cannot be made, since the grafts would be rejected sooner or later. An animal or other primate, it can be rejected sooner or later. Tissue matching, blood group matching are essential before undertaking any graft rejection, and even after this the patient has to take immunosuppressant all his or her life. The body is able Because the body is able to differentiate self and non-self, and the cell mediated immune response is responsible for the graft rejection. because the because our body is able to differentiate self and non-self, and the cell mediated response is responsible for this graft rejection, right? The active and passive immunity. When a host is exposed to antigens, which may be in the form of living or dead microbes or other proteins, antibodies are produced in the host body. This type of immunity is called the active immunity. When a host is exposed to antigens, which may be in the form of living or dead microbes or other proteins, antibodies are produced in the host body, right? This type of immunity is called the active immunity. So active immunity is slow and takes time to give its full active responses. So active immunity is slow and takes time to give its full effective response. So injecting the microbes deliberately during immunization or infectious organisms gaining access into body during natural infection induce active immunity. So injecting the microbes deliberately during immunization or infectious organs gaining access into body during natural infection induce active immunity, right? So it can be like immunization if we are giving the, if we are ejecting the microbes so that our body can actually synthesize the antibody, or it just like the natural infections. Okay, so it can induce the active immunity. So when ready-made antibodies are directly given to protect the body against foreign agents, it is called the passive immunity. So do you know why mother's milk is considered very essential for the newborn infant? No. Yes, I know, because the yellowish fluid colostrum secreted by mother, during the initial days of lactation has abundant antibodies IgA to protect the infant. The fetus also receives some antibodies from their mother through the placenta during pregnancy. These are the examples of passive immunity. Now the next context is the vaccination and immunization. The principle of immunization or vaccination is based on the property of memory of the immune system. So in vaccination, a preparation of antigenic proteins of a pathogen or inactivated weakened pathogen, that is vaccine, are introduced into the body. Remember again, repeat it again. In vaccination, a preparation of antigenic proteins of pathogen, a preparation of antigenic proteins of pathogen, a preparation of antigenic proteins of pathogen, antigenic matlab against the proteins of pathogen. Okay, so antigenic proteins of pathogen or inactivated or weakened pathogen, that is vaccine. We in vaccine what we do, we weaken the pathogen, we inactivate it and given to the patient so the patient can make it the antibodies against to it. So this is how it does. So or inactivated weakened pathogen vaccine are introduced into the body. The antibodies produced in the body against, now the antibodies produced in the body against these antigens would neutralize the pathogenic agents during the actual infection. Now the antibodies produced in the body against these antigens would neutralize the pathogenic agents during actual infections, right? The vaccines also generate memory B cells and T cells that recognize the pathogen. Now vaccines also generate B cells and T cells that recognize the pathogen quickly on subsequent exposure, or when the invaders with a massive production of antibodies. If a person is infected with some deadly microbes to which quick immune response is required, as in tetanus, we need directly inject the preformed antibodies or antitoxin, a preparation containing antibodies to the toxin. Even in cases of snake bite, the injection which is given to the patient contain preformed antibodies against the snake venom. This type of immunization is called passive immunization. So we have studied like two examples, that is tetanus, we directly inject the preformed antibodies or antitoxin, a preparation containing antibodies to the toxin, or even case of snake bite we also do it like preformed antibodies against the snake venom. So these are the passive immunization. Now the recombinant DNA technology has allowed the production of antigenic polypeptides of pathogen in bacteria and yeast. Now all these antigenic polypeptides, that is proteins of pathogens, now we made it through the recombinant DNA technology. Okay, in bacteria or yeast. Now vaccines produced using this approach allow large scale production and hence greater availability for immunization. Example, hepatitis B vaccine produced from yeast. So vaccines produced using this approach allow large scale production and hence greater availability for immunization. Example, hepatitis B vaccine produced from the yeast. Now the allergy, so we are going to study the allergy. So when you have gone to a new place and suddenly you started sneezing, wheezing for no explained reason, and when you went away your symptoms disappeared. So this is what this happened. This is because the sensitive to some particles in the environment. The above mentioned reaction could because of the allergy to pollen and mites, which are different in different places. So the ex graduated the ex the ex graduated the ex the graduated response of the immune system to certain antigens present in the environment is called the allergy. The substances to which such an immune response is produced are called the allergens. The substances to which such an immune response is produced is called an allergens, and antibodies produced to these allergens are of, okay, the substances to which such an immune response the substances to which such an immune response is produced the substances to which such an immune response is produced are called the allergens. So these are the allergens, right? Now antibodies produced to these allergens, these substances, are called the IE type. Now common examples of allergens are mites in dust, pollen and animal dander, etc. So symptoms of allergic reactions include sneezing, watery eyes, running nose, and difficulty in breathing. Allergy is due to the release of chemicals like histamine and serotonin from the mast cells. For determining the cause of allergy, the patient is exposed to or injected with very small doses of possible allergens and the reaction studied. The use of drugs like antihistamine, adrenaline, and steroids quickly reduce the symptoms of allergy. Which drugs like antihistamine and then adrenaline and steroids, they reduce the symptoms of allergy caused by the histamine and serotonin release from the mast cells. Okay, somehow modern day lifestyle has resulted in lowering of immunity and more sensitive to allergens. More and more children in metro cities of India suffer from allergies and asthma due to sensitive to the environment. This could be because of the protective environment provided early in the life and they are not adapted. So when they get to the new places, they get sick. This is it. Now the autoimmunity, not auto driver. Okay, so memory based acquired immunity evolved in higher vertebrates. So this autoimmunity evolved in higher vertebrates based on the ability to differentiate foreign organisms from self cells. Okay, now foreign organisms from cell foreign organisms, these are the pathogens, right? While we still do not understand the basis of this, the two corollaries of this ability to have been understood. One, higher vertebrates can distinguish foreign molecules as well as foreign organisms. Most of the experimental immunological deals with this aspect. So higher vertebrates can distinguish foreign molecules as well as foreign organisms, right? Two, sometimes due to genetic and other unknown reasons, the body attacks self cells. This results in damage of the body and is called autoimmune disease. The example is rheumatoid arthritis, which affects many people in our society, is an autoimmune disease. Which is rheumatoid arthritis, remember this. Then the immune system in the body. So then the immune system in the body, right? The immune system consists of lymphoid organs, that is tissues, cells, and soluble molecules like antibodies. You have read immune system is unique in the sense that it recognizes foreign antigens, responds to these, and remembers them. The immune system also play an important role in allergic reactions, autoimmune diseases, and organ transplantation. So immune system plays important role in allergic reactions, autoimmune diseases, and organ transplantation. Now the first thing that come up mind in the human system in the body. So the human system consists of a lymphoid organs, tissues, cells, soluble molecules like antibodies. The human immune system consists of a lymphoid organs, tissues, cells, soluble molecules like, so antibodies, these are the soluble molecules. You have read immune system in, okay, so this is done, I think. But now we are going to study the lymphoid organ. So these are the organs where origin and maturation and proliferation of lymphoid occurs, right? Origin, maturation, and proliferation of lymphoid occurs. The primary lymphoid organs are bone marrow and thymus, where immature lymphocytes differentiate into antigen-sensitive lymphocytes. After maturation, the lymphocytes migrate to secondary lymphoid organs like spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, Peyer's patches of small intestine, and appendix. So after maturation, the lymphocytes migrate to secondary lymphoid organs like spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, Peyer's patches of small intestine, and appendix. So after maturation, the lymphocytes migrate to secondary lymphoid organs like spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, Peyer's patches of small intestine, and appendix. The secondary lymphoid organs provide the site for the interaction of lymphocytes with the antigen, which then proliferate to become effector cells. Okay. Now the bone marrow is the main lymphoid organ where all blood cells including lymphocytes are produced. So all blood cells including lymphocytes are produced. These are the bone marrow. Now bone marrow, it is a lymphoid organ, right? The thymus is a lobed organ located near the heart and beneath the breastbone. So this is the thymus. Now the thymus is quite large at the time of birth, but it keeps reducing in size with the age, and by the time puberty is attained, it reduces to a very small size. So thymus is quite large at the time of birth, but it keeps reducing in size with age, and by the time puberty is attained, it reduces to a very small size. So both bone marrow and thymus provide microenvironments for the development and maturation of T lymphocytes. So both bone marrow and thymus uh, provide microenvironments for the development and maturation of T lymphocytes, right? The spleen is a large bean-shaped organ. So the spleen is a large bean-shaped organ. It mainly contains lymphocytes and phagocytes. So spleen contains lymphocytes and phagocytes. It acts as a filter of the blood by trapping blood-borne microorganisms like. So this spleen acts as a filter of the blood by trapping blood-borne microorganisms. Spleen also has a large reservoir of erythrocytes. The spleen also has a large reservoir of erythrocytes. The lymph nodes are small solid structures located at different points along the lymphatic system. Lymph nodes serve to trap the microorganisms or other antigens which happen to get into the lymph and tissue fluid. So antigen trapped in the lymph node are responsible for activation of lymphocytes present there and cause the immune response. So the antigens that are trapped in the lymph nodes are responsible for the activation of lymphocytes present there and cause the immune response, right? Are responsible for the activate like B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes gets activated by trapping the antigens into the lymph nodes, right? So there is lymph tissue also located within the lining of the major tracts, that is respiratory, digestive and urinogenital tracts, called the mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, like that is malt. So lymphoid tissue also located within the lining of the major tracts, that is respiratory, urogenital and digestive, called mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, malt. It constitutes about 50% of the lymphoid tissue in human body. Okay, so this is it. Now we are going to study the AIDS, right? So we are going to study the AIDS, then there is a cancer, and then the next part is the drugs and alcohol abuse, right? So now this is the AIDS. Okay, the word AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. This means deficiency of immune system acquired during the lifetime of an individual, indicate that it is not a congenital disease. This is the deficiency of immune system acquired during the lifetime of an individual, indicate that it is not a congenital, it is not from stillbirth. Okay, syndrome means a group of symptoms. AIDS was first reported in 1981. Okay, in the okay, and it already killed like 25 million persons. So it is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus HIV, a member of a group of viruses called retrovirus, which have an envelope enclosing the RNA genome. Transmission of HIV infection generally occurs by sexual contact with infected person, right? Or by transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products, by sharing the infected needles as in case of intravenous drugs abusers, and from infected mother to her child through placenta. So the people who are at the high risk of getting this infection includes individuals who have multiple sexual partners, drug addicts, who take drugs intravenously into the vein, and individuals who take repeated blood transfusions, and children born to an HIV infected mother. So do you know when do people need repeated blood transfusion? Find out and make a list of such condition. It is important to note that HIV AIDS is not spread by mere touch or physical contact. It spreads only through the body fluids. It is hence imperative for the physical and physiological well-being that the HIV infected person are not isolated from family and society. There is always a time lag between the infection and appearance of AIDS symptoms. This period may vary from the few months to many years, that is usually 5 to 10 years. This is the incubation period, right? After getting into the body of the person, the HIV enters into the macrophages, that is in the tissue. There are the cell macrophages where RNA genome of the virus replicates from the viral DNA with the help of the enzyme real transcriptase. This viral DNA gets incorporated into the host cell's DNA and directs the infected cells to produce virus particles. The macrophages continue to produce viruses in this way, acts like HIV factory. Simultaneously, HIV enters into the helper T cells, replicates and produce progeny viruses. The progeny viruses released in the blood attack other helper T cells. This is repeated, leading to progressive decrease in the number of T lymphocytes in the body of the infected person. So during this period, the person suffers from bouts of fever, diarrhea and weight loss. So bouts of fever, diarrhea and weight loss. Due to decrease in the number of helper T cells, the person starts suffering from infections like that could have been otherwise overcome, such as those due to bacteria, especially mycobacterium, viruses, fungi, or even parasites like toxoplasma. the patient becomes so immunodeficient that he or she unable to protect himself against this infection. A widely used diagnostic test for AIDS is enzyme linked immunosorbate assay, that is ELISA. So this is the widely used diagnostic test for AIDS, that is enzyme linked immunosorbate assay, ELISA. The treatment of AIDS with antiretroviral drugs is only partially effective. So the treatment of AIDS with antiretroviral treatment of AIDS with antiretroviral drugs is only partially effective. Antiretroviral drug is only partially effective. They can only prolong the life of the patient, but the death is prevented, right? Inevitable. Okay, now the prevention of AIDS, as AIDS has no cure, prevention is the best option. Okay, so there are bodies like NACO, the National AIDS Control Organization. National AIDS Control Organization, this is the body. And then NGOs, that is non-governmental organization. These are the NGOs, non-governmental organization, are doing a lot to educate people about AIDS. WHO, World Health Organization, okay, and they making the blood from blood bank safe from the HIV, ensuring the use of only disposable needles, and sharing in public and private hospitals and clinic, free distribution of condoms, controlling drug abuse, advocating safe sex, and promoting regular checkups for HIV in susceptible population are some steps are taken. Okay, now we are going to study the cancer. Now we are going to study the cancer. So what is cancer? So cancer is the most deadly diseases of human beings and is a major cause of death all over the globe. So more than 1 million Indians suffers from the cancer, and a large number of them die from it annually. The mechanism that underline development of cancer or oncogenic transformation of cells. Development cancer is equivalent to the oncogenic transformation of cells. Okay, its treatment and control have been okay. So cell growth and differentiation is highly controlled. Okay, so but in cancer cells this regulation gets breakdown of this regulatory mechanism. The normal cells show a property called contact inhibition, by virtue of which contact with other cells inhibit the uncontrolled growth. So contact inhibition, it uh, it it inhibits the uncontrolled growth. So cancer cells appear to have lost this property. As a result of this, cancer cells just continue to divide, giving rise to masses of cells called tumors. Now tumors are of two types, that is benign and malignant. So benign tumors normally remain confined to their original location and do not spread to other parts of the body and cause little damage. The malignant tumors, on the other hand, are a mass of proliferating cells called neoplastic or tumor cells. So these are the malignant tumors, that is neoplastic or tumor cells. These cells grow very rapidly, invading and damaging the surrounding normal tissue. These cells grow very rapidly, invading and damaging the surrounding normal tissue. As these cells actively divide and grow, they also starve the normal cells by competing for vital nutrients to them. Okay, cells lost from such tumors reach distant sites through blood, and wherever they get loaded in the body, they start a new tumor there. So this property called the metastasis, like the the whatever you place they just get settled in there. So this is how malignant tumor is. So wherever they get loaded in the body, they start a new tumor there. This property called the metastasis is the most feared property of malignant tumors. It can like cause your whole body to be the cancerous, okay, very fast. So causes of the cancer, so the transformation of normal cells into cancerous neoplastic cells may be induced. So the what happen in cancer, the normal cells get oncogenic transformation, like into the cancerous neoplastic cells. So these are the cancerous cells, neoplastic cells may be induced. Now these can be induced by the physical, chemical and biological agents. Now these agents are called the carcinogens. So ionizing radiation like X-rays and gamma rays, and non-ionizing radiation like UV rays. So ionizing radiation, that is X-rays and gamma rays, and non-ionizing radiation like UV cause DNA damage leading to neoplastic transformation. The chemical carcinogenic present in tobacco smoke have been identified as a major cause of lung cancer. So the chemical carcinogens present in tobacco, tobacco smoke have been identified as a major cause of lung cancer. The chemical carcinogens present in tobacco smoke have been identified as a major cause of lung cancer. Cancer causing viruses called oncogenic viruses have genes called the viral oncogenes. So the cancer causing viruses called oncogenic viruses have genes called viral oncogenes. Furthermore, several genes called cellular oncogenes, that is C onco or proto oncogenes, have been identified in normal cells which have been identified in normal cells have been identified in normal cells which when activated under certain conditions could lead to oncogenic transformation of the cells. Now I read it again, like cancer causing viruses called oncogenic viruses. Cancer causing viruses, that is oncogenic viruses, have genes called viral oncogenes. Furthermore, several genes called cellular oncogenes, that is C onco or proto oncogenes, have been identified in normal cells which when activated under certain conditions, these cellular oncogenes or proto-oncogenes have been identified in normal cells which when activated under certain conditions could lead to oncogenic transformation of the cells. So cancer detection and diagnosis. Now early detection of the cancer. Now, the early detection of the cancer is essential as it allows the disease to be treated successfully in many cases. But cancer detection is based on the biopsy and histopathology studies of the tissue and blood and bone marrow test for increased cell counts in the case of leukemia. So, for leukemia, there is blood bone marrow test for increased cell counts, but it is generally biopsy and histopathology studies of the tissue and blood, right? So, in biopsy, a piece of the suspected tissue cut into the thin sections is stained and examined under microscope, that is histopathological studies by pathologists. Techniques like radiography, that is use of X-ray, CT, computed tomography and MRI, that is magnetic resonance imaging, are very useful to detect cancers of the internal organs. So techniques like radiography, that is use of X-ray, CT, computed tomography, MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, are very useful to detect cancers of the internal organs. So computed tomography uses X-rays to generate a three-dimensional image of the internals of an computed tomography uses X-rays to generate a three-dimensional image of the internals of an object. Okay, MRI uses strong magnetic fields and non-ionizing radiations to accurately detect pathological and physiological changes in the living system. So antibiotic against cancer specific antigens are also used for detection of certain cancers. So antibodies against cancer specific antigens. So cancer specific antigens, the antibodies that are produced against to them are also used for the detection of certain cancers. Techniques of molecular biology can be applied to detect genes in individuals with inherited susceptibility to certain cancer. Identification of such genes which in individual to certain cancers may be very helpful in prevention of cancer. Such individuals may be advised to avoid exposure to particular carcinogens to which they are susceptible. So some people can be susceptible, so they are usually told to like avoid like the tobacco smoke tobacco smoke in case of lung cancer. You can be susceptible, okay, to avoid exposure to particular carcinogens. Okay, now the treatment of cancer. The common approaches for treatment of cancer are surgery, radiation therapy or immune therapy. In radiation therapy, tumor cells are irradiated lethally, taking proper care of the normal tissue surrounding the tumor mass. Now chemotherapeutic drugs are used to kill the cancerous cells. Some of these are specific for particular tumors. Majority of drugs have side effects like hair loss, anemia, etc. Now, most cancers are treated by combination of surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. Tumor cells have been shown to avoid detection and destruction by immune system. Therefore, the patients are given substances called biological response modifiers such as alpha interferon, which activates their immune system and helps in destroying the tumor. So this is it, like okay, the most cancers are treated by combination of surgery, radiotherapy and chemotherapy. Chemotherapy drugs, like the major of drugs have side effects like hair loss, anemia and etc. Like radiotherapy, that is tumor cells are radiated lethally, taking proper care of the normal tissue surrounding the tumor cells. And surgery, it has to be surgery and alpha interferons. Okay, These are the biological response modifiers which activate their immune system and help in destroying the tumor. So this is it. And from the above that I read it so fast. Techniques like radiography, that use of X-rays, computer tomography, and magnetic resonance imaging. So in magnetic resonance imaging, three-dimensional image, remember this, of internal organ. Okay. Strong magnetic fields. Okay, so the computer tomography uses X-rays to generate a three-dimensional image. X-rays and three-dimensional image in computer tomography, and MRI, magnetic resonance, strong magnetic fields, and non-ionizing radiations to accurately detect the pathological and physiological changes in living tissue. Okay. Now antibodies against cancer-specific antigens are also used for detection of certain cancers. So this is all. Like, now we are going to study the drugs and the alcohol abuse. So the drugs and the alcohol abuse. So drugs and the alcohol abuse. Okay. And the drugs which are commonly abused are opioids, cannabinoids, and coca alkaloids. These are three drugs. Majority of these drugs are obtained from flowering plants. Some are obtained from fungi. So opioids, so these are the first drugs, are the drugs which bind to specific opioid receptors present in our central nervous system and gastrointestinal tract, that is CNS and GIT, gastrointestinal tract. So heroin, commonly called smack, is chemically diacetyl morphine, which is white, odorless, bitter, crystalline compound. So heroin, commonly called smack, is chemically diacetyl morphine, which is a white, odorless, bitter, crystalline compound. This is obtained by acetylation of morphine. Okay, that is diacetyl morphine. It is a heroin. It is smack. Now which is extracted. Now this is extracted from the latex of. So this is extracted from the latex of latex of poppy plant, that is Papaver somniferum. Latex of poppy plant, that is Papaver somniferum. Generally taken by snorting and injection. Heroin is a depressant and slows down body functions. So this is the opium plant, that is Papaver somniferum. Poppy plant, Papaver somniferum. So these opioids are obtained from this. Okay, diacetyl morphine, right? Now this is the chemical structure of morphine. Now the cannabinoids. So cannabinoids are a group of chemicals which interact with cannabinoid receptors present principally in the brain. Okay, cannabinoids are the group of chemicals which interact with cannabinoid receptors present principally in the brain. So natural cannabinoids are obtained from the inflorescence of the plant Cannabis sativa. The flower tops, leaves, and resins of the cannabis plant are used in various combinations to produce marijuana, hashish, charas, and ganja. So generally taken by inhalation and oral ingestion, these are known for their effects on cardiovascular system of the body. So the skeletal structure of the cannabinoid molecule. This is the skeletal structure of the cannabinoid molecule. Two OH groups are present. This is the leaves of Cannabis sativa. Now these leaves of Cannabis sativa, these are the from the inflorescence of the plant Cannabis sativa. So the natural cannabinoids are obtained from the inflorescence of the plant Cannabis sativa. The flower tops, leaves, and the resin of the cannabis plant are used in various combinations to produce marijuana, hashish, charas, and ganja. So generally taken by inhalation and oral ingestion, these are known for their effects on the cardiovascular system of the body. C for cannabinoids, C for cardiovascular system. Okay. Now the coca alkaloid or cocaine is obtained from coca plant, that is Erythrosylum coca. So coca alkaloid cocaine is obtained from coca plant Erythrosylum coca, native to South America. It interferes with the transport of the neurotransmitter dopamine. Okay, cocaine, commonly called coke or crack, is usually snorted. It has a potent stimulating action on central nervous system, producing a sense of euphoria and increased energy. So cocaine, commonly called coke or crack, is usually snorted. It has a potent stimulating action on CNS, producing a sense of euphoria and increased energy. Excessive dosage of cocaine causes hallucination. So excessive dosage of cocaine, coke or crack causes hallucination. cause hallucination. Other well-known plants with hallucinogenic properties are Atropa, belladonna, and datura. So these days cannabinoids are also being abused by some sports person. So drugs like barbiturates or amphetamines, benzodiazepines, and other similar drugs that are normally used as medicines to help patients cope with mental illness like depression and insomnia are often abused. Morphine is a very effective sedative painkiller and is very useful in patients who have undergone surgery. So morphine is very effective sedative painkiller. So morphine is very effective sedative painkiller and is very useful in patients who have undergone surgery. So several plants, fruits and seeds have also hallucinogenic properties. Okay. Uh, so the flowering branch of datura, okay, Atropa, belladonna, and datura. These have the hallucinogenic property. So this is it. Now smoking. Now what about the smoking? So smoking also paves the way to hard drugs. Smoking is also hard drugs. So tobacco has been tobacco has been used by tobacco has been used by human beings for more than 400 years. It is smoked, chewed, it can be chewed or used as a snuff. Okay, but tobacco contains a large number of chemical substances including nicotine and alkaloid. Okay, nicotine stimulates adrenal gland to release adrenaline and non-adrenaline into blood circulation, so both of which raise blood pressure and increases the heart rate. Now smoking is associated with increased incidence of cancers of lungs, urinary bladder and throat, bronchitis and emphysema, coronary heart disease, gastric ulcer, etc. Tobacco chewing is associated with increased risk of cancer of the oral cavity. So tobacco chewing is associated with increased risk of cancer of oral cavity. Smoking increases carbon dioxide content in blood and reduces the concentration of the heme-bound oxygen. This causes the oxygen deficiency in the body. So when one buys, okay, this is not as important. So adolescence and drug alcohol abuse. Adolescence means both a period and a process during which a child becomes mature in terms of his attitude, beliefs for effective participation in society. So adolescence means both a period and a process. Now the period between 12 to 18 years of age may be thought of an adolescence period. Okay, so the child be so between this period the child becomes so between this period the child between this period the child becomes child becomes mature in terms of a attitude and beliefs for effective participation, right? 12 to 18. In other words, adolescence is a bridge linking childhood and adulthood. Adolescence is accompanied by several biological and behavioral changes. So in this adolescence there is some several biological and behavioral changes. Adolescence thus is a very vulnerable phase of mental physiological development of an individual. Okay, curiosity, need for adventure and excitement and experimentation constitute common causes, okay, which motivate youngsters towards drug and alcohol use. Nothing that important in here. So addiction and dependence. So addiction and dependence. Now addiction and dependence. So because of the perceived benefits, drugs are frequently and used repeatedly because of the perceived benefits. The most important thing which one fails to realize is the inherent addictive nature of alcohol and drugs. Addiction is a psychological attachment to certain effects such as euphoria and a temporary feeling of well-being associated with drugs and alcohol. So addiction is a psychological attachment to certain effects such as euphoria, increased energy, and a temporary feeling of well-being associated with drugs and alcohol. So this drive people to take them even when these are not needed or even when their use becomes self-destructive. Now, with repeated use of drugs, the tolerance level of the receptor present in our body increases. Consecutively, the receptor respond only to higher doses of drugs or alcohols, leading to greater intake and addiction. The person gets addicted and becomes dependent on their use. Okay, the dependency is a tendency of the body to manifest a characteristic an unpleasant withdrawal syndrome. An unpleasant withdrawal syndrome if regular dose of drugs alcohol is abruptly discontinued. I read it again. Dependence is a tendency of the body to manifest a characteristic an unpleasant withdrawal symptom if regular dose of drugs alcohol is abruptly discontinued. This is characterized by anxiety, shakiness, nausea, sweating, which may be relieved when use is resumed again. Okay. So dependence leads the patient to ignore all social norms in order to get sufficient funds to status is it's not that important. Okay. Effects of drugs alcohol abuse. Okay, the immediate adverse effects of drugs and alcohol abuse are manifested in the form of reckless behavior, vandalism, and violence. Excessive doses of drugs may lead to coma and death due to respiratory failure, heart failure, and cerebral hemorrhage. The most common warning signs of drug and alcohol abuse among youth include drop in academic performance, unexplained absence from school, college, lack of interest in personal hygiene, withdrawal, isolation, depression, fatigue, aggressive, rebellious behavior, deteriorating relationship with family, friends, loss of interest in hobbies, change in sleeping and eating habits, fluctuations in weight, appetite, etc. Now those who take drugs intravenously, direct injection into the vein using a needle and syringe are much more likely to acquire serious infections like AIDS and hepatitis B. The viruses which are responsible for these diseases are transferred from one person to another by sharing of infected needles and syringes. Both AIDS and hepatitis B infections are chronic infections and ultimately fatal. Both can be transmitted through sexual contact or infected. Both can be transmitted. Both can be transmitted through sexual contact or infected blood. The use of alcohol during adolescence may also have long-term effects. It could lead to heavy drinking in adulthood. The chronic use of drugs and alcohol damages nervous system and liver, that is cirrhosis. The use of drugs and alcohol during pregnancy is also known to be adversely affect the fetus. The chronic use of drugs and alcohol damages the nervous system and liver, that is cirrhosis. Okay. Another misuse of drugs is what certain sportsmen do to enhance their performance. The misuse of drugs to enhance the performance during the sports persons, right? The misuse, now very important, now they misuse narcotic analgesic they misuse narcotic analgesic gesics and anabolic steroids. So they misuse narcotic analgesic anabolic steroids, diuretics and certain hormones, diuretics and certain hormones in sports to increase muscle strength and bulk and to promote aggressiveness, and as a result increase athlete performance. The side effects of the use of anabolic steroids in females include masculinization features like males, increased aggressiveness, mood swings, depression, abnormal menstrual cycles, excessive hair growth on the face and body, enlargement of clitoris, deepening of voice. In males it includes acne, increased aggressiveness, mood swings, depression, reduction of reduction of the size of the testicles, decreased sperm production, potential for kidney and liver dysfunction, breast enlargement, premature breast enlargement in males. Okay, then premature baldness, enlargement of the enlargement of the prostate gland. So these effects may be permanent with prolonged use. In the adolescent, male or female, severe facial and body acne, premature closure of the growth centers of the long bones may result in stunted growth. These effects may be permanent with prolonged in the adolescent, male or female. So male or female adolescents, if you take all these, do all types of this misuse, then severe facial and body acne, premature closure of the growth centers of the long bones may result in stunted growth. Now prevention and control. Avoid undue peer pressure, then education and counseling, then seeking help from parents and peers, and looking for danger signs and seeking professional and medical help. So this is your chapter and this is done. And prevention is better than cure.